Hello again, guys. I wanted to do a follow-up to that video that I posted the other day. There's a couple points that I feel like I could make a little better or expand upon, especially because people don't seem to understand that just because you put something on a blockchain doesn't mean that there's any guarantee of inviolable property rights, especially when you're talking about interacting with whatever that, because like, yes, obviously you can display ownership of whatever it is that's quote unquote on that blockchain, but whenever you take that signature and you're interacting with some sort of digital ecosystem, which is almost always centralized in some way, shape, or form, there's no way to guarantee an inviolability of those property rights, even if you're able to demonstrate them. So like, let me try to draw out an example here. So like, let's say we have the Bitcoin blockchain, and I'm going to use Bitcoin as the example here because I think even on Bitcoin, like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And let's say like in this block here, you have the hash of your NFT, and it's supposedly your property, right? And you can use this NFT in this cool new video game that got created by this developer over here, developer A. And all you have to do is sign a message that they send you with the key that corresponds to this NFT that you own. And when you do that, you get to use this really cool item that you have in the game that's linked only to that NFT, and it's this super snazzy hat, right? And it's really great because you own this hat and no one else owns this hat because you have the NFT that corresponds to it. And then one day you're playing the game in this, because this developer makes this huge ecosystem, right, for you to play around in. And like, let's just say it's like Counter-Strike, whatever, because that's an easy example. And you're the only person who can wear this hat in Counter-Strike because you have the NFT. And then one day you say something that the developers don't like you call, like, let's use an extreme example and say that you say something racist to someone on your team in one of the games, right? So now, yes, you still own this NFT that corresponds to this hat, but the developer says, hey, you know what? We don't like you. We don't like what you're doing. And since what we used to do was just like freeze all of your items and do a VAC ban on you. Usually they only do that for cheating, like Valve only does it for cheating. I don't know if they do that. I think they might like mute your account or something like that, but this is just a hypothetical example, right? So they don't like you. So what we're going to do is we're going to blacklist all of your NFTs. So yeah, even though you have those NFTs and they're linked to your account, now when you log in, you can no longer see your hat. In fact, everything, all of the items that you own, however many NFTs you have, we're blacklisting all of the UTXOs for all of your NFTs, and whenever you log in, you're not going to see the hat. You're only going to see the default skin. And we're going to go so far as now all of your NFTs, not just that, they're blacklisted. So even if you trade them, like sell them to someone else because you can't use them anymore, they're not going to show up for that person either. And we're going to, on our website, publish like a list of all of the blacklisted UTXOs so that people know not to trade with you, right? So like, you can see, yeah, you still have control of the NFTs, but if those NFTs are, so, and this is the problem, right? Because these, quote unquote, this property is always going to be issued by some sort of centralized party, right? Even, and this is the developer that creates the ecosystem that you're going to use to interact. And this is why I think it's such a dumb argument to think that this changes gaming, because it really doesn't. Like, it's not, like I said in that first video, functionally it's not any different from just doing all of this on the centralized ecosystem that you're already on, right? Where they're still going to be able to control your ability to interact with their environment that they've created, and yeah, maybe you still own the NFT, but like, if they've blacklisted it from the ecosystem that you're interacting in, the main thing that gives the NFT value in this case, then it's totally useless. Like, you basically just own like a random entry in a blockchain that dictates absolutely nothing. That there's total lack of inviolable property right there, just because it's their ecosystem. Like, they control the rules in this space that you play in. And it actually, like, if people wanted to make the argument that the NFT has value outside of like this ecosystem, I could buy that. I still think it's a bad speculative instrument because like I'm not sitting here to say that like there's no value in digital property. Like if you want to buy a DLC for a game, or like I talked about in my previous video, like there's all these items on Steam that correspond to digital property. But this idea that NFT like revolutionizes the way that you can interact with these walled garden digital ecosystems is pretty ridiculous. And I think it's like, that's just marketing, right? And I get it. I understand it. However, it makes more sense to say that this NFT is just like a standalone thing on its own, and it will never have any utility in one of these walled garden ecosystems because of these types of problems. And the other thing I wanted to explain was this idea of the metaverse, right? And I talked about this a little bit in the first video, but I'm going to expand on it. So you've got developer A, and they issue this NFT that corresponds to this hat, right? So let's say like you're logging in, you've got this hat in the game, and you say, well, I really want to be able to use this hat that I bought, this NFT. So like you paid developer A some money, and that's how you got this hat, right? So now developer A made some money off of this hat, and they're happy because you're using their service, you're paying them for these digital items that you own as NFTs. And now you say, well, I want to be able to go into this game produced by developer B and go into their ecosystem and wear my hat that I got from over here, right? But here's the problem. What incentive does developer B have to dedicate resources to implementing? Because like, even if these things are cross-compatible, developer B still has to implement the art resource like at the local code level for their digital ecosystem. What incentive do they have to let you use this NFT that you bought from developer A and paid developer A for? Why would they contribute any resources to allowing you to use that in their ecosystem when they can say, hey, yeah, you like that hat you bought from developer A? Well, you can buy one from us for half price, right? And it'll be a whole new NFT that has nothing to do with your other one. It'll be the exact same item. But if you want to use it in our ecosystem, you're going to have to buy it from us because we want our money. And this is a really simple example, right? This is just two developers. Now, let's say we have a developer C, a developer D, a developer E, and go on down the list. And you have all of these different isolated digital ecosystems. There is no incentive for these companies that monetize, the sale of like these quote unquote digital items to allow cross compatibility between these ecosystems. And like I said before, like maybe with Valve, right? Valve has been a publisher for a really long time. Maybe they produce lots of different games where you can use those items interchangeably, but you're still under their ecosystem, right? Because they're the sole publisher. If you're going to ever see like a metaverse like that, it's going to be one sole digital ecosystem. And then we're right back to this problem where you're just in this centralized walled garden, and this entire thing of putting NFTs on the blockchain still makes no sense when it comes to video games. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, this idea that people have that just because NFTs are now worth a lot of money, that it's going to open up doors for people to be able to get paid playing video games, right? Because the way it works right now is like, go talk to a kid who's like 14 and ask them what they want to do, and 95% of them are probably going to want to tell you they either want to do YouTube or they want to do Twitch, and they want to like play video games for a living or just do like vlogging or whatever. So like there's a huge audience, not just for like watching Twitch, but aspiring content creators who want to get paid to play video games for a living. And I totally get that, right? I mean, really, who doesn't want to just sit around and play video games and make millions of dollars like some of these, really famous and successful people on the internet? So you have to like break down these revenue models, right? So these content creators that make tons and tons of money for playing video games, how do they do it? Well, most of the time that money that they make comes from advertising revenue, right? You know all about this. You may be able to skip a lot of it if you use an ad blocker and you block native ads on things like YouTube. But these people have gotten smart, right, and figured out that they have to do product placements in their content, and that's why you hear people shilling like Nord and ExpressVPN, or like trying to sell you like fancy combs or like sunglasses or whatever during their content, right? And they give you like a referral code or like a link to go to or something like that that gives the company that's advertising way for them to track like how much traffic and profit that user has generated. And then a lot of times they'll give them like a percentage of the number of like sunglasses or combs or whatever that they sold. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it's like a flat payout. It's like, okay, your videos get 10 million views in a week. So like if you call out our product in your video gets 10 million views, we'll just pay you like $10,000 or something like that. There's like some different models as to how these things work, but like there's lots of different ways to monetize content, and the majority of them, those dollars come from advertisers, right? And that's pretty straightforward. I think most everybody understands that. So there's like this radical new idea, right, that you can create these digital ecosystems that have these NFTs, and because they're, non-violable property and no one can take them and they're on a blockchain and decentralized and all this nonsense that they're telling people, we can pay our users in NFTs and they can just make tons of money playing video games, and that model is going to sustain itself, and now we can do away with the advertisers. I'm here to tell you that that's not going to happen, right? So why are these NFTs that people are playing these games that use NFTs worth so much money? And where does that money come from? And how are like all of these individual players that are playing these games, right, that are earning these NFTs and selling them for money and being able to like afford to play video games professionally, where is that money coming from? Well, the answer is not necessarily that it's coming from these NFTs, but it's coming from speculators who are coming into this market. They have money, right? They see this NFT and they have this player who's playing this video game professionally. The video game player needs to sell this NFT in order to be able to pay their bills. The speculator sees the NFT and they buy it because they're hoping that later on this NFT is going to be worth a lot more money and they're going to be able to sell it at a profit. All right. So first of all, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, there's nothing wrong with speculating on something, expecting that it's going to go up in value in the future. But if we're talking about this being like a long-term sustainable business model, it's like I said, go and look at Steam and look at the most expensive items on their marketplace for some of the games, like really popular video games. And these items don't command prices like in the tens of thousands of dollars, in millions of dollars, like you've seen with some of these NFTs. The really, really rare ones maybe sell for like a couple $1,000s. And you're not going to see like a huge return on that as a speculator. Best case scenario, it may hold its value. I think there were like some really, really rare Dota 2 items, like one-of-a-kind Dota 2 items that during the peak of Dota 2's popularity, I think may have sold for like $50,000. But we're talking about like one-of-a-kind items, the kind that someone got like when the game first came out and maybe had no idea that it would ever be worth that much. That's usually how these types of collectibles become worth lots of money, is because they're one of a kind. People didn't know to like obtain them or speculate on them at the time because the audience for the product was much, much, much smaller. And someone just happened to have it and hold on to it because they liked it, because they were a collector. And then lo and behold, years later, it becomes worth lots and lots of money. It's what you've seen with things like Star Wars toys from the original Star Wars movies. Like when they first came out, no one was holding on to those and collecting those, except for the really dedicated fans who years later found out, hey, I'm one of the only people who have this and I can sell it for a lot. It's why Beanie Babies are not really worth a ton of money today, except for the really, really, really rare ones. Because when they came out, everyone was thinking, wow, these are going to be worth tons of money one day. I remember specifically my grandmother telling me when I was a kid, buying me Beanie Babies and saying, these, you better hold on to these. These are going to be worth a lot one day. Like, I've heard that line so many times from people who buy just like worthless collectibles that are bought and sold with the intention of being speculative stores of value. This model of paying players of video games with NFTs, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, I actually think it's really cool. And again, this is something Valve already does with Steam, where you can like play CSGO, and as you play, you earn items, and you can actually turn around and sell those items. It actually used to be a lot better with Dota 2. You used to be able to earn a lot of items and could earn, like not much money, but like a couple bucks a week if you were playing Dota 2 pretty regularly, or if you got really lucky, like maybe 10, 15 bucks. But we're not talking about the kind of income, sustainable income that these people are going to be able to like use to play video games professionally and pay their bills. Because when these dollars from the speculators dry up and these NFTs are not commanding exorbitant prices anymore because the speculators have realized, wow, these things are either only going down in value or they're staying flat in value, and no one's coming in with all this new money to buy it from me so I can sell it at a profit. Well, this entire model collapses, right? And I'm not here to say that the only way content creators can monetize their content is with advertising. I actually think that model might be going away. And I think that what we're going to see a lot more of in the future is the value for value model. Now that we have micropayments have been made possible with the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, I think you're going to see a lot more is like, okay, for every second. So if I'm a content creator, right, I want to charge somebody for every second that they watch my content. This isn't something that you can do very easily on a platform like YouTube using something like PayPal or dollars, because those types of transactions aren't really possible. But with Bitcoin, especially on the Lightning Network, transactions are instant and practically free. They're so cheap, they're practically free. You can essentially stream content creators money for every second or every minute or every megabyte, however it is that you want to break it up, or however the software breaks it up, of their content that you consume. So if their content's really, really good and you spend like 7 hours one day binge watching their content, well, then maybe you're going to pay them like $10 over all of that time that you're streaming them money while you're consuming their content. I actually think that this model is a lot better than like the advertising model, because who likes ads? I mean, honestly, I feel like there's got to be diminishing returns with these advertising models over time, unless it's like a product that really, really resonates with the audience. Most people are probably going to ignore it, especially as more and more time goes on. Like, advertisers have had to get more and more creative, you know, because we all use ad blocker on our browser, and or just like skip through the ads or whatever. Even when people read them out on like their podcasts or their streams and stuff, we like to try to skip through those, because who wants to listen to advertisements? It's 2021. It's just kind of a dead and dying model, like especially nowadays where the access to information is so good. You know, when you want to buy a product, you're going to go somewhere and like look up what people have to say about that product. It's not like it was back in the day where you learned most of your information from the television. So advertisers had to have a really strong presence on the television in order to be able to inform you essentially about what products were available and what problems they solved. Today, it's like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to like open a can of beans. Well, I'm going to go to like Google or Reddit or Yelp or Amazon or something and look at what people have to say about all of the tools that are used to open cans of beans, right? And it's much easier to access information. So advertising is becoming less and less, I think, it's having diminishing returns. I think it's becoming less and less effective for every dollar spent. And I could be wrong. I don't have any data to back that up. That's just my hunch. But anyway, yeah, that's my spiel. That's sort of like a follow-up on NFTs and why I don't think they work in gaming. And I still think it's a pretty dumb idea to speculate on them. And that's it.